Welcome to Cohesive Friendship Unit. My name is Chris, and I'm here with Jake
Hey guys.
and Jeremy.
Hey guys.
We are doing a special, not the first time I think, but very rare, special 3-person review on Cohesive Friendship Unit. This time for Gunfire Reborn, a new roguelike from a Chinese studio. We're going to share our thoughts and impressions on this. Should you buy it? Is it worth the money? What games is it most aligned with? And how do we feel about it being in early access? But before we get into all that, we would love it if you guys would throw us a sub. We would super much appreciate that support. And if you found this video helpful, please throw us a like and let us know down below if you checked out Gunfire Reborn and how you feel about it. So I'm just going to give an overview real quick, and then we're going to dive into the gameplay for the three of us. And you guys feel free to chime in on the overview. Basically, this is a roguelike. This is a roguelike that is in the first person, and you can play it with up to 4 people, which is fairly rare for roguelikes. So first person 4-player roguelike. It's an early access game from a Chinese studio. It has very similar kind of vibe, like artistic vibes to something like Borderlands or Overwatch, kind of cel-shaded type simple art style. And it reminds me personally of Risk of Rain 2 just from the perspective that it's a 4-player roguelike. Do you guys have anything else you want to add on the overview?
No, I think that sums it up.
Cool. All right, so yeah, let's just talk about the gameplay then, because like this is a roguelike, like I said, 4 players. I would recommend playing it with 4 players. How do we feel about the game? Like how do we want to sum up the gameplay, talk about the gameplay, highlight the gameplay?
The gameplay is pretty fun. I don't know, when I saw the trailer, and ironically I had the same reaction when I saw the trailer for Risk of Rain, but I was like, man, this game looks stupid. And then you convinced me to buy it, and we played it, and now I feel like I'm slightly addicted to this game because there's something about it that is just very, very entertaining. I don't know what it is. But the core, I would say, like the driving factors or the driving aspects of this game is collecting weapons and classic roguelike leveling up skills or some sort of abilities outside the game in some sort of overworld. So that's kind of the progression of what you do in the game as you continue to upgrade your character as you do runs.
Yeah, I think the gun kind of swapping is most similar to Borderlands, right? Where you're kind of there's like a lot of different guns, and you're switching them fairly regularly. Then you have the roguelite element where when you die, you can upgrade yourself. And then it is pseudo-random levels. You're only playing this, there's like 3 bosses, and there's 3 themes, and you never deviate from that. So it is pretty straightforward from that standpoint.
Yeah, and it has like, I would call it light looter shooter aspects because there are a lot of guns, like you said. Every gun has some sort of like subtext modifier, which is very Borderlandsy, as you said. But it's not Borderlands. It's not full on like Borderlands Destiny kind of thing. It's just there's a subset. You're not like once you grind out gear. Like once you're done with the run, it's gone. You just have to hope you pick up another good one next time.
Right, and there are 2 characters with kind of different abilities right now, and the other part that I guess makes it roguelite-ish is during your run, well, you are upgrading your guns, you're also upgrading your character with, like movement speed modifiers, damage modifiers, just stuff like that.
Yeah, and unlike Risk of Rain, which is our other favorite roguelike, you don't upgrade your character throughout the run. In Risk of Rain, you level up and you get more health and all of that. But in this, you go in with a set health and shields, and your kind of abilities or your modifier throughout the run is the guns you get, not items or anything like that.
You have any thoughts on the gameplay, Jeremy?
I mean, there are items in the sense that there are those chests that will give you like curses and scrolls and shit. You guys have played a little more than I have, but there are some things that like tweak your stats a little beyond the guns. But yeah, no, I think you guys pretty much hit the nail on the head. The biggest driving factor to the game for me is, unlocking and playing with new guns, which are very colorful. There's lots of ammo types, lots of damage types. I would say the combat, as Jake said, is addictive. It's not particularly challenging, but it's not so easy that it's boring. It's funny because I've also been playing a lot of Halo. I think we've all been playing a lot of Halo. Like Halo, it's kind of a grenade-heavy game. Like, you're just constantly throwing these little smoke grenades and picking up more. I feel like I'm never out of them, and they are kind of an integral part of the gameplay. I don't know.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about the gameplay that I think is kind of like differentiating itself from definitely roguelite, it's at least. I can't. It reminds me in a way of Mass Effect, is you have different like ammo types which do different things. I mean, we'll talk about how good or bad all of these things come together once we talk about our negative / changes we want a little later, but you have shock damage, for example, and corrosive damage, fire damage, and all of these damage types can be better against certain enemies, better against certain shields. So you can only carry 2 guns, but there's 3 damage modifiers, so you're always kind of like balancing that in your head at the same time as all the other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, and that's one thing that kind of gives it a little more sophistication than it otherwise would have.
And one of the first things I noticed when I was playing is there's headshots in the game, which I feel like we mention this all the time when we play Risk Arena. It's like, why are there no headshots? There's headshots in this game, and it's super satisfying to hear the little like ding when you get one, and you're like, yes, I did it.
And your number changes colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about the presentation of the game. I mean, we've talked about like the art style and stuff, but is there anything we want to talk about from like a music standpoint or a tech standpoint, or how things are presented to you?
Yes.
not giving any hints.
It is early access for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's early access for sure, and like we said, it's developed by a Chinese studio, well, a Hong Kong studio, which I don't think I've ever bought a game like straight developed from Hong Kong, and the English translation is just like no way around it. It's rough. It's like actually hard to understand what things do sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean, it's not a disaster. Like, I don't want to turn anyone off who might be interested. You can play the game, but like, there's just a lot of, translation errors, and coupled with the fact that I think that it's a very high volume of information overall. There are 5 different ammo types. There are multiple ammo sizes. There are what are referred to as talents. That's kind of, I believe, after playing this game for like 10 hours, the skills that you're leveling up across runs. None of this is like rolled out in a graduated way in which they maybe introduce one type of weapon, and then once you have mastered that, they show you another type of weapon and the type of enemy that it corresponds to. I'm not asking for hand-holding. They just kind of say like, here's a lot of weirdo stuff all at once, and by the way, it's not necessarily translated super clearly, so it doesn't add to a sense of being able to like grasp things all at once.
Yeah, there's a lot in this game. I want to harp on that for a second. It feels like they kind of threw in every single aspect they can think of for a roguelike, because there's ammo types, there's abilities or scrolls they call them, there's guns that you can pick up, there's leveling up outside, there's characters, there's like every single thing you can stuff in a roguelike in this one, and they don't do a great job of explaining that to you. And when most of your game is dependent on like meta, like microing your like subtext and your modifiers on your weapons, if they don't clearly explain what they're doing, it makes it kind of hard to like micromanage that kind of stuff.
I find myself mainly still going through the game and just like accepting whatever scrolls or modifiers that I come across on the basis of like, it's also extremely wordy. Like, it's like multiple long sentences of information for like any sort of item or new gun or like ammo type or modification. And so like the game doesn't pause while you're interacting with a vendor because it is multiplayer and online. So like I'm just accepting things as I go along, which, to Jake's point, not really it's not playing into the kind of micromanagement play style that they seem to encourage you to want to take up.
Yeah. And as when we played Risk of Rain, and if you're sitting here thinking, oh, I play roguelikes all the time, and I expect there to be a learning curve, which Risk of Rain, there was a huge learning curve. You don't get to like sit there and read the description of every single item as you pick it up. They kind of like flash it on the screen for a couple seconds and then it's gone, and you have to learn that. So I expect a little bit of like upfront learning curve as to what things do, but this one's going to be a steep one because not only is there a lot, but it's not really clear what all the things are. There's no kind of lore book, which I know a lot of games bring that in, where you can go like in the menu outside of a game and just like check out something you picked up and figure out what it does. The explanations are not good enough to even explain what they do sometimes, which can be hard. I generally just kind of go off the color of the text, and if it looks like legendary, then I'm going to pick it up, and if it's not, then I'm still going to pick it up because I don't know what it does. So
yeah, we've talked. I think we've all played this for at least 10 hours or around about there, and we're still putting together some basic fundamentals of the game. At least I was until fairly recently. Like, just, thinking of how your actual character progresses in a run, just super quickly, there's your gun. Your gun can be modified. Like, you can add something to your gun. You can add, like, an inscription to your gun that changes its behavior, that could give it that corrosive damage, for example. For your character, you can pick up these occult scrolls. Those occult scrolls are just general buffs, but there's also cursed scrolls. There's also occasions where you get a cursed scroll and a normal occult scroll, and those are just like cursed scrolls generally harm you. On top of that, when you clear a level, you get what's called the Golden Goblet, which gives you just yet another buff that's like there. Like, so there's like 2 layers of buffs in a run, plus each gun has its own like set of buffs. It is a lot to digest, which I think ultimately is a good thing in the long run. It's just the way it's fed to you is not. They have a tutorial in the beginning, and it teaches you like the stuff that you don't need to know, like how to move and jump, like that. They didn't need to tell you because it's all the other stuff that they should have spent that mandatory 5 minutes to just kind of get you in.
Yeah.
Anyways, as far as the other presentation stuff goes, anything else we want to talk about? I mean, I'll just say of the soundtrack, there's like one song that bangs. The rest is like fine.
yeah, overall the game, like I said, is very early access. It gives the impression of like a couple of friends like made a game and then published it. And unfortunately, it's kind of hard to figure out who this publisher and developer is, but it does not seem like a boatload of friends. But the English translations aren't great. The menus definitely look like they didn't have a UI designer or anything like that, which is fine. I don't have super high expectations for a lot of my games at this point anymore. But one of the things that it does do is it tracks from my like faith that the game is doing what it says it's doing. We were playing a run last night, and like I was using the Thanos gauntlet, and it says that it's supposed to chain lightning to other enemies, and I never really noticed it, and I was like, I don't know if this actually does it. And then eventually we were like, oh, it does, it's just not super obvious. So there's times like that where I'm like, I wish they kind of made it more obvious that their game is actually doing what they tell me it's doing. Some of the inscriptions are like, oh, your movement speed goes down by 40%, but then you get plus 30%, so it should only be 10%, but it feels like 40%. So there's a lot of these, like, I don't know if it's really doing what they're telling me it's doing, and I can't, like, check, because there's no way to check.
I mean, Jeremy was saying last night that this just kind of goes on, like, the audio-visual cues or lack thereof, that, like, he just doesn't know when he's losing his health sometimes.
The health, you have both like Halo, you have a shield and a health bar, and once the shield is out, your health starts to take damage, which you can then heal by purchasing items or clearing a level, and I think those are the only ways. There might be others. But like, it doesn't make, I mean, I turned the volume down somewhat because I found it kind of loud and I'm playing with my friends, and I want to hear them. But it doesn't make like obvious noises when you're taking damage to your shield, and it also doesn't make obvious noises when you're like at critical health, and it's in the bottom left-hand corner, and it's rather small. I'm not looking at the bottom left-hand corner. I'm looking in front of me at the enemies I'm trying to kill. So it's not visually somewhere that jumps out, in my opinion, that jumps out at the player. And there's also no cue except for when you come back from the dead, and then it does like a ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom heartbeat type thing to indicate like, oh shit, you just fucking died. But like, bruh, that would be good before I die, because then I would know that I'm low health and I would not do stupid shit.
Yeah. All right. Well, it seems like we're already starting to talk about negative slash early access changes that we want. So this is an early access, so there's always room for improvement, I guess, and there could be a lot of these changes could kind of be in the works. So like, what are some changes that we might be interested in seeing?
I got one. I think we all have this one, but beyond like the stuff we just covered was sort of negative, but not the worst thing ever. But when you die in multiplayer, you don't come back until the end of the scene, which is like their collection of like 5 or 6 levels, I think, which in this game is a fucking long time. That takes forever for you to get through that, and you don't come back before the boss. You don't even come back after the boss. You come back at the beginning of the next scene, so you miss the boss fight. You miss all the loot that you get at the end. And if you died early on, you just missed like 15, 20 minutes of gameplay, and you were just bored out of your mind. So you should come back after like each level.
I mean, you and I were talking about solutions for this. There's a couple ways you could tackle it. I think if they should either, currently you can like up a down teammate and you get 1 revive per game, assuming you have enough gems to do it. I think one solution would be you just cut the revive and you have to up with the like every other game where you stand over them and you hit F to pay respects until they come back to life. That should be the only way to revive someone. And instead you come back at the end of each level or something like that. Like, there's a few ways to tackle it. I don't know.
You could also sell an item that like brought your teammate back from the dead.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways to handle it. But yeah, I agree. Like, once you go down, there's, at least in the current state of how we've been playing it, you're very unlikely to be coming back.
And it's not as punishing, ironically. Like in Risk of Rain, we always complained about, oh, if you die, you're behind for the entire game usually. In this, like, you can pretty much pick up a new gun and be right on track with everyone else, but you probably like went and got a snack and like drank a whole beer and then still had time before you respawned.
Yeah. I mean, my like, from a just gameplay mechanic standpoint, the biggest thing that I would add is a melee. I think we've all also talked about this. It just seems to really make sense sometimes. Like, you're like up against an enemy and it makes sense that you could melee them and get them off you a little bit. It would feel satisfying.
Yeah. And enemies can melee you.
Yes.
You just can't melee them.
They all seem to have a melee animation, so. And I mean, obviously it's early access, but more than 2 characters would be nice.
Yeah, most of the things that we've touched on, I don't suspect will probably be changed, except for maybe the one we just discussed about having your teammates come back. But I think like 2 obvious things that I would like to see added in the future would be more characters and more levels. I expect that we'll probably, if this is actually an early access game and not just a game that they're selling as early access, if they intend on adding more content or improving things, those are the things I'm expecting, because it's 2 characters and they're not very different.
Yeah. More diversity in the characters they add in the future, assuming they do, would be great.
And I would also like to see just a minor amount of level, maybe kind of like how Risk of Rain does it, where there's essentially 2 level 1s and 2 level 2s and 2 level 3s that you can get. Because as it stands right now, you go through level 1, which is pseudo-random, like the 5 stages. Like, you are kind of going through a maze, but it's very samey feeling. And you fight the same boss every time, and then you go through level 2, which is the same like theme, but it is pseudo-random, and then you fight the same boss, and then level 3. Cool. Any other negatives / changes that we'd like to see? Because that's not too bad if that's all we got.
I mean, I was focusing on things I'd like to see added or things I'd like to see changed. In terms of like a criticism for a game that's so focused on and so driven by the player's desire to like unlock and play with new guns, I think a lot of the guns are very similar. And they just don't stand out in a big way. There are some memorable ones, like one, for instance, there's, as we said, the Thanos gun, which is like it's a little cat's paw that shoots lightning. That's pretty cool, like a little glove for your kitty cat. There's a kunai knife that you can throw, and that bounces around. It does poison damage. That's pretty cool. There's a rocket that looks like a dragon, but a lot of them are just like, super lightning gun of doom, and it's like, this is big one, this is the small one. So as opposed to say like Ratchet and Clank, another cartoony gun focused game where the guns like stand out a lot. I'm not saying I want to turn people into a fish, just like something a little different would be interesting. Maybe there's just a whole ton of guns I haven't seen. I don't know.
Yeah, and I have seen that there are a lot of guns that we as a group haven't unlocked yet, so I know there's more. I can't vouch for how good they are, but I know there's more out there.
Cool. So let's talk about our value / score. Like, if you want to score it, you can give it a score. But like, so right now it's $12 on Steam. Should you buy it as a solo player? Should you buy it with your friends? Is it worth buying at all? Yeah, just give our summaries, I guess. I mean, I'll say I do like $12, $13 is pretty cheap in the video game world, and it is a game that you can have quite a bit of fun with your friends. I even think it's not that bad of a solo game. Like, I guess what I'm saying is for $13, I'm pretty forgiving, and a $13 roguelite is, I mean, they're generally content rich, and I plan on at least finishing completing runs a couple chunks of time. Like, it's not the next Risk of Rain, but it is it's a solid roguelite, especially in its infancy.
Yeah, the price is really what drives the value here. Like, it overall, the game is pretty okay. Like, I think the reason we all bought it is because there's not a lot of options for multiplayer roguelikes right now, and we kind of cuck for that, so we were all about it. But if you are like a solo player and you're just looking to pick up a new roguelike, there's a lot of really good ones out there that go on sale for around $10 to $15. I mean, Risk of Rain, obviously, Slay the Spire, Dead Cells, 80s, FTL, Moonlighter, Binding of Isaac. There's like a gajillion of them out there. So if you're a solo player, maybe this isn't really the most valuable or best option for you, unless this is exactly what you're looking for. But if you're a multiplayer roguelike player like us, there's really only a handful of options.
I'm going to echo what Jake said. If you're someone who really enjoys roguelikes and likes to play them with friends, then I would say maybe check it out. Otherwise, if you're just a solo gamer who likes roguelites, if you haven't already played 200 hours of Risk of Rain yet, then at this point I would say probably wouldn't recommend it for $13. It's good, but I don't know, not $13 good. I'm not trying to be a Brian over here, but
yeah.
I don't know. I think my price point for the game as it is would be more like $8.
Okay,
but I am free.
That's fair,
and I think that is like a good point. I think we were fairly positive on this whole time, but I mean, there is a fourth person in Cohesive Friendship Unit, Brian, who can't be with us here today, but I think he's much
with us
more.
In spirit.
He's with us in spirit. Yeah, I think he is much more negative on the game. So
yeah, he doesn't like it,
and he loves Risk of Rain. So like it take a look at it and see if it vibes with you.
But let the record show, Brian and I also didn't like Risk of Rain to begin with, and we were proven wrong on that. So I am prepared to be, wowed as we continue to play Gunfire Reborn.
Most generic name ever. All right, cool. Well, I think that wraps this one up. I guess, let us know down below if you plan on checking it out. Throw us a like. Sub us if you love us. We don't have Brian here to be saying all the cool stuff, but yeah. I guess I'll fill in. Smoke him if you got him. And that's all for us. We'll catch you guys next time.